Irulau. Watch your back, the trench is gonna get you. Watch your back, the trench is gonna get you. Watch your back,
Oh, there's a giant here. It's a coming from the utility. Gotta wash those red hands. It's the crimes of the Badlands. It's the crimes of the Badlands. Hi, Douglas.
Hi, Jules. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm out of school for the summer.
Oh, it's
amaze
party
balls.
time. Party time.
Party time. Yep. That's about it.
It's San Juan, and it's
and
today,
it's San Juan today, yeah.
which is relevant to our story, I hear.
It is, but we'll get into that later. This podcast is about any and all crimes that occur in the Basque Country and or around the world.
It's true with any connection to the Basque Country, be it a surname, be it where the crime happened.
Mostly about surnames, if it happens somewhere
Mostly
else,
about
right?
surnames. And it's about the Basque Country and crimes. So that's the other thing. We mostly covering crimes. As silly as they may be, sometimes they're very silly crimes.
Well, a lot of crime is silly.
It is. It's true.
So
Very silly.
we'll cover all of it. The gory,
and the silly. But yeah, we're mostly trying to have a good time and explore connections to the Basque Country as well.
Yeah. Yep.
We're getting some drinks.
Yeah, we got a drink. We're having some cava.
Indeed.
I'm celebrating that I finished work for the year.
Nice.
So I'm on summer break.
I started.
School's out for summer, as Alice Cooper would say.
It's fun.
You probably don't even know that song, do you, Douglas?
No. Until you said it was a
That's
song.
the funniest thing about
Still didn't even know
hanging
what
out
you
with
were
you is that our pop culture references are I don't know.
No idea. No. After Michael Jackson and Madonna, it just goes very fast down.
Well, those are very pinnacle pop culture moments for me too.
Get those.
So.
Get those.
All right.
Bedtime Stories, my first CD. Bet you didn't know that.
Which one? Bedtime Stories? Oh my God, that's so much later.
It's a bit. But
mine's True Blue.
I had radio
Like
and
a
stuff.
virgin.
But we only got a CD player quite late, around about that age.
I'm talking
time.
cassette tapes. I was cassette tape.
Yeah, that's the thing. I never had cassette tapes myself.
Wow.
So
I remember 8 tracks. My parents had 8 tracks. And Douglas is drinking a beer.
I'm drinking a beer. A very forgettable Estrella Galicia.
Actually, it's pretty nice for a
It's
cheap
a good
beer.
lager. It's a good, simple, inoffensive lager. Mm-hmm. I do like it. I do like it.
Shall I get into our story?
Yes, you have a story to show to me today.
The sources were Euro Weekly News, Fascinating Spain, WordPress, Amusing Planet, Bilbao Click, and, of course, my old friend, Wikipedia.
Nice. Exciting.
Yes. I should really donate to Wikipedia.
This is a historical one, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So this week's episode is going to cover something fun that our producer, Megan, stumbled across a while ago.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah. And we thought it might be fun or fitting for a summer episode. Okay?
Yeah.
So no worries, all of you listeners. There's not really any disclaimers or, content warning I have to warn you about. This won't be covering anything that will give you nightmares.
No goriness.
Yeah. It doesn't involve murder or gore or anything like that. So.
But it is a coincidence.
So the only content warning I would give is check your facts, keep your receipts when trying to prove or disprove something historically.
True.
So my one sentence synopsis for this story: mythological creature surfaces from the sea, baffling men in robes.
Man in robes. Ooh, how exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, creature from sea is already... It sounds a bit scary, to be
All
honest.
of it is scary. So maybe it will produce some nightmares, but probably not.
Just scariness, nightmares. Yeah, not real crime. Wow.
And the best thing about a historical story is that all the sources say the same thing. So, there's no discrepancies between sources.
Very nice.
So, this story takes us all the way back to around 1650. To a small village called Liérganes. It's on the Cantabrian coast. So, as we have said in previous episodes, but for new listeners, Cantabria is the province to the west of Biscaya. It's Biscaya is where we live, so it's on the northern coast of Spain and to the west of the Basque Country.
Yeah. It's not part of the Basque Country.
No. Liérganes isn't exactly on the coast, but it's a bit inland, but it's near Santander, which is on the coast. Okay?
Yes.
Which is the capital of Cantabria.
It is slightly inland, yeah.
It's a small little village. It looks very stunning in photos.
Looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just
It's on the list of places to visit for our
nice.
Crimes of the Basque Lands excursions that we might do in the future.
It's a good tour.
It's got the beautiful green hills surrounding it. It's like a little picturesque village.
2,000 people.
Yeah.
Tiny little place.
It's got some really sweet architecture, a Roman bridge, and probably some really good food.
You always have good food around there. You just need to be lucky to find a good restaurant.
And yes, as you were saying, the latest census says there are 2,391 inhabitants. As for the population back in 1650, I have no fucking idea. But it was probably smaller and a lot less picturesque than it is today.
Just as picturesque, I think.
Maybe. Not as
sadder.
Not as like tourist destination sort of picturesque. So, back in around 1650, there was at least one family living there. A married couple, Francisco de la Vega and Maria del Casar, and their 4 sons.
Okay.
One of which we'll learn about today is their second son, Francisco de la Vega Casar. Okay? So, Francisco Sr. dies, leaving his wife and kids with no income. So, what is a family to do in this circumstance?
Yeah, terrible social security those days.
No. No social security, no
Zero.
pensions, So the mom sent her son, Francisco, off to get an apprenticeship as a carpenter.
Nice.
So he's going to earn some money somewhere else and send it back to the family. So this is where our story brings us to Euskadi, to Bilbao. He was sent to Bilbao.
Really? How sweet.
Which is where we live.
Here we are.
Yep.
That's a connection. We're already in Basque Country.
So according to legend, Francisco did in fact become a carpenter. And he worked as one until 1674. The event that starts this whole mystery is on St. John's Day Eve.
Today.
San Juan, right?
Yeah.
So this is a religious holiday, which is happening today, in fact, while we're recording. This is the day of. So this is happening right now as we speak in and around the country.
Yeah, well, all over the Latin American continent, too.
So I'll give you some background on what St. John's Eve is.
Yeah.
Okay. So this starts at sunset on June 23rd, the day of our recording. It's the eve of the celebration before feast day of St. John the Baptist.
Okay.
In the Gospel of Luke, it states that John was born 6 months before Jesus. Therefore, the feast of St. John the Baptist was fixed on the 24th of June. So 6 months before Christmas, according to the old Roman calculation, blah, blah, blah. This feast day is one of the very few saints' days which commemorates the anniversary of a birth rather than the death of a saint. So the Feast of St. John closely coincides with the June solstice.
Right.
Also referred to as midsummer.
That was just a
in
few
the
days
northern
ago.
hemisphere. Yep, that was on the 21st usually is when they say the solstice is. The Christian holy day is fixed on June 24th, but in most countries festivities are mostly held the night before on St. John's Eve.
There's a thing about fires and bonfires.
Yeah, we'll go into that.
Okay.
So, like I was saying, this is celebrated here in Bilbao and in many other cities and towns, as we know as simply as San Juan, right?
Yeah.
On the eve of San Juan, the town organizes giant bonfires in various neighborhoods to welcome the summer.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. I see the connection with paganism now.
Yes. The solstice, right?
And the fires, yeah.
So according to the website Bilbao Click, the bonfires and fiesta are to welcome the summer with the arrival of San Juanada in Bilbao and its witches' night, where we will burn our fears and ills.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm sure all three of us have attended one of these fiestas at some point. I have as well.
Didn't know about the reasons or the connection with the solstice, but that's lovely to know.
Yeah. So it's like the one I've been to is in Echevarria Park, which is in Bilbao, above Casco Viejo, right?
Mm-hmm. Just above the old town.
Mm-hmm. So they put on a big bonfire. It's huge, and then there's people walking around in like these creepy costumes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, there's like drum beating and people walking around in costumes that are like, whoa, kind of
Really?
like. So I think that's the witches' night type of thing. Like,
Interesting.
I'm not sure if that's the connection.
Well, in Brazil, people get dressed up as like country folk, and it's like a national holiday. Everybody's like dressed up as they call it caipira, as in like you're like from like a baserri, like from a farmhouse. So like they'll try lots of checkers, big cowboy hats. That's the sort of thing people wear in Brazil. So different kind of dress up, but finally they do dress up somehow.
I mean, it's not like the local people are up there dressed up. It's just like a performance they're putting on, right? While the fire's going, these people are walking around doing creepy things. And, you're encouraged to write down your fears and ills or whatever negativity you want to get rid of before the beginning of summer. So you're encouraged to write something, and then people are encouraged to go up and throw it in the fire, whatever you've written down. In our story, it was on San Juan's Eve, or San Juan, or St. John's Day Eve, when our boy Francisco was out celebrating with his workmates, and he decided he'd like to go for a little swim in Bilbao's estuary, which is the river Nervion that runs through the city. So he was apparently he was a good swimmer, so this idea didn't seem too outlandish that he wanted to go take a swim.
Very nice.
Maybe it was already heating up in the city as like today. Today was very hot.
Yeah, it's definitely
hot weather. It's summer. It feels like summer outside.
Yeah,
right?
There's a slight disconnection for us because after industrialization, the Ria became quite polluted. So we don't immedially think of diving into these days.
No.
But I'm sure in 15?
1674,
That must have been
I think.
Lovely water then.
Was when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So he was probably hot, and maybe he had some drinks, out celebrating.
Probably.
And this is when most people come up with the best ideas, right?
Of course. I mean,
out drinking, it's hot. So he disrobes and he jumps in to the river. And this is when everything went terribly wrong. The current was either too strong or maybe he was too drunk. Okay. But he was unable to get back to shore.
Oh, man.
So the last that his workmates saw of him was being swept downstream until they lost sight of him.
Oh.
And this estuary would eventually carry him out to sea because it's an estuary, right?
It does, yeah.
So they didn't worry too much about him because they thought he's a strong swimmer. He'll surface at some point or he'll swim to shore at some point and maybe just walk his way back, right?
Yeah, we would hope.
They figured he'd just reappear, like, eventually.
There's quite a stretch of river from here to the coast, so it's not like he's immediately being...
Like, if he didn't get out immediately, he may, later have more opportunities to get out.
Yeah.
But a day went by, and he never did reappear.
Oh, man.
So he was presumed to have drowned, and that was that. So, should we take a break right here?
Let's do that.
Okay, we're back.
We're back.
All right, well, back to our story. So he went into the river, disappeared.
Poor guy.
Assumed to be drowned, right?
Yes.
So hang on to your chapella, Douglas, because this is where it's going to get crazy. All right?
Okay.
And, it doesn't end there, right?
No, I don't assume so.
That's not where the story ends, because otherwise this would be a very short episode.
Yeah.
So, it'd be pretty boring. So, our story picks up 5 years later.
Wow. It's a long time. Poor mother's very sad. She lost her son.
Son died. Yeah, everybody assumes he's drowned.
Oh, yeah. No money in the family.
His coworkers were like, we were trying to keep an eye on him, and he decided to go swimming. You might feel a little bit of guilt,
Excuses made.
Yeah. Our story picks up all the way down in Cadiz.
Oh, wow.
It's a very southern tip of Spain. It's right across from Africa.
Yeah.
Pretty far.
Yeah.
Like, we're at the very top north of the peninsula, and this story picks up right at the very tip of the southern peninsula. So it was down in Cadiz.
Right.
When local fishermen began to spot this strange-looking aquatic creature in the water.
Okay. Yeah.
At one point, a group of them even had the creature entangled in their nets, and it was fighting to escape their nets, their fishing nets, right?
Okay.
They struggled to capture it, but the creature was able to break free and swam off. Over the following weeks, several different fishermen had reported sighting the creature and attempting to capture it, but with no luck. Until one boat was able to lure the creature close enough to catch it by using loaves of bread.
Oh my gosh. Right.
Classic.
Interesting.
They love their bread.
I mean, you would have bread lying around.
Like, bread, I'll come for that.
It's Southern Europe. You gotta have bread.
They love their bread.
I mean,
So
everybody.
they got
in
it with
Europe,
bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they were able to haul their catch on board, they found that it appeared to be a beefy young man with very white skin, thin red hair, and very corroded fingernails.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
But what had confounded them most was his fish-like appearance.
Okay.
He was reported to have a strip of scales that ran from his throat to his stomach, and another strip that ran the length of his spine.
Cool.
In addition, he had what appeared to be gills around his throat.
Right.
Okay? So, thinking they had some kind of monster on their hands, they did what any rational person would do.
Try to kill it.
No, they took him to the church.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious. Well, it's 1779.
1679.
1679, sorry.
Yeah. So they were like, well, the church knows what to do, right?
Apparently. I mean, I guess if there was an alien...
Take him to the church.
They would take it to the church.
It was, in fact, the convent of St. Francis where he was delivered.
Convent, okay.
And apparently being the church and having received an ungodly beast from a bunch of fishermen, they promptly performed an exorcism.
Oh, I thought they were baptizing first.
On him.
Okay.
Yep, they exorcised him immediately.
Okay.
Devil be out,
Makes
right?
sense. It's kind of rich trial-y times.
And they interrogated him in several different languages, but to no avail.
Oh, I love the detail of the different languages.
So, do you think that they interrogated him in Basque?
Of course not.
Well, what do you think? Come on.
I mean, it's quite far from the Basque Country. That's my
Yeah.
guess.
But if it's several different languages, what languages do you think they were using? Latin?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, and no answers.
Yeah.
Then what? Castilian?
Yeah. Castilian.
Several. It said several different languages.
Probably,
so what other?
probably Arabic, because
Arabic.
just,
Okay.
they're
Africa.
just across
Right
from
across
Africa.
from Africa. Yeah.
And if we're thinking that, if they were thinking he crossed over the straits, there's a lot of Berber spoken there, or Amazigh is it also.
Where's that from?
Berber / also known as Amazigh is the languages that were spoken around Morocco, Algeria, Tunis before the Arabs arrived.
Okay.
So they still continue to live today in Algeria and Morocco, in the mountains mostly. So it's kind of like the Basque of North Africa.
Okay.
In a way. French, Portuguese,
Yeah.
Catalan, Basque, Galician. Then you could start going for the tiny languages like Bable, which is from Asturias.
Asturias, yeah.
You could go for Aragonese, which is Aragon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's far from the coasts, but
Yeah. But, they didn't have any answers, so they were just trying to get answers out of this guy.
Yeah,
So,
it's an
let's
interesting.
try this language.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were thorough, they'd have to get like 7 Basque dialects.
True.
3 from
True
the north.
at the time, yes, of course. Yeah. Of
4
course.
from here.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's I like that detail though.
Yeah.
Very considerate of them to think of different.
Well, they were
languages.
just like, who? What the?
Yeah.
Looks like a man. But he's also a fish.
I like that.
Well, so after several days of getting no answers from their fishman, he finally spoke.
Oh.
He simply uttered the word Liérganes.
Okay, so...
And nobody knew what this meant.
Oh, right.
Made no sense to anybody.
I mean, it was a tiny town those days.
Right. So...
If it's 2000 now, imagine in 16.
Right. I've never heard of it today.
I had.
And we lived near.
We do live very close.
We do live pretty close to it. So it was inquired about around town with no luck until one day a sailor from the north who happened to be docked in Cadiz, at the time said there was a small village near his hometown by that name. So Domingo de la Cantoya, who was the secretary of the Holy Office. It's the tribunal of the Holy Office of the Inquisition.
Yes.
More known as the Inquisition.
Yes.
He confirmed that there was in fact a small town called
Liérganes.
Liérganes.
You got it.
It was near Santander. Okay.
Still is.
Which is where he was from. He was from Santander.
Okay.
This guy. So he got the ball rolling. This all got the ball rolling on their investigation into who this Fishman was.
So I presume he's detained in Cadiz?
He's just being held in this convent.
Right.
Convent. Convent.
Does he have access to water?
Well, I'm sure they're feeding him and stuff. I don't know.
But if he's a fish man, he maybe needs a bit more water.
I have no idea. They didn't go into any details like that. We kept him in a tank.
Right? That would be hilarious.
No, there's no details like that.
He's in a pond. He's fine.
Just splash him with water every 4 to 5 hours.
He does like bread, the ducks.
He loves bread.
Poor guy. Just think back at the crazy things they said about witches, so.
Right.
This is the kind of people we're
exactly.
dealing with.
This is the people we're dealing with. These are the people that are investigating it. So the Bishop of Cadiz sent word to Santander to fill them in on their captive, and he gave them he filled them in on what was going on, and it was complete with a physical description to see if anyone up there was somehow related to this creature or would recognize him. Okay?
I love that.
So it's has anyone seen this fish man?
Yeah.
Or does anybody know this fish man? Has anyone lost their fish man? And I wonder if they had sent a police sketch type drawing. He looks like this.
Seems like they didn't think about that yet.
Probably not.
Who knows? That's a cute... We have to ask AI Tor to give us some opinions.
Oh, yeah. AI Tor is going to have a field day with this, right?
Yeah. You guys, you have to sign up to our Instagram to get our AI images that we generate based on our stories. Yeah. And
whatever AI Tor comes up with.
There's some beautiful images. I love some of them.
So they received word that no one had, in fact, lost a fishman.
Okay.
And no creature fitting that description had ever been spotted around town.
Right. Weeks later, because it takes, 8 days to walk there.
How long would the message could take to get up there? But the only news of missing persons reported out of Liérganes was the tragic death of a red-headed man 5 years earlier in Bilbao. One Francisco de la Vega Casar. Okay.
Somebody remembered him.
Oh, okay.
His mom, his brothers, sisters.
So upon hearing this, a Franciscan friar by the name of Juan Rosendo at the convent theorized that perhaps this fish man they were holding was indeed Francisco de la Vega.
Sure. Red hair is rare enough.
Right.
Can go with that.
And that perhaps he'd been swept out to sea from Bilbao. Because they heard about him having gone into the river and disappearing, right? And that he'd been living as a sea creature for the last 5 years before arriving in Cadiz.
A fascinating theory.
Yeah. So he asked for permission to take the fishman back up to Liérganes.
You got it.
To follow up on his theory. So I like to imagine this conversation you guys just let me take him up there and just see if anybody recognizes him, and they're like, oh, come on. What are the chances? And
if it's the only word he said ever,
right?
There's a bit of weight to that.
And what were they going to do with him otherwise, right?
Yeah, build a bigger pond.
Is he going to become a monk or something here, this fish man?
It's hard if you can't understand even Latin.
Right. No other languages. You can only say one word.
Liérganes.
Yeah. So I just love to picture them discussing this with the guy going, come on, let me take him up north, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they did end up granting this friar, Juan, permission to take the fishman up north to see what's what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, according to legend, when the friar Juan, I'm just going to call him Juan,
Sure.
and the fishman were nearing the town of
Liérganes.
Liérganes, the friar let the fishman loose
Oh my gosh.
and just followed him to see if he would lead them to
Interesting.
town. And he did. Not only did the creature know the way to Liérganes,
Okay.
but he led him directly to the house of Maria del Casar,
Oh wow.
Francisco's mother.
I'm impressed already.
Yeah?
This is crazy.
Right? So upon arriving, she and her 2 sons immediately recognized him as their long-lost son.
Wow.
Right?
Turn of story crazy.
Right?
I'm imagining somebody slightly drunk hitting his head against a rock and saying, "Oh, now I'm a fisherman." You know, I mean, you could believe that. Kind of psychotic break, and now I'm a
Right,
fish.
and then once
Now
you're
I'm
in like a
fish.
familiar surroundings that you suddenly
Could help you.
you're like, oh, I know where I am.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, could be happening.
Yeah, you just have like snap back into reality.
I mean,
It's true. It could happen.
yeah, our works of fiction talk about that.
Yes. Yes.
It seems based on real medicine, but I'm not a doctor, so.
No, neither am I. Neither am I. So he ended up moving back home with his mother
Wow.
and his brothers. He led a quiet, albeit strange existence while living with his family at their home.
Right.
It was said that he would always walk barefoot,
Mm-hmm.
and unless clothes were forced upon him, he preferred to be nude.
Oh.
He never really talked again,
Oh, wow.
except that he would sometimes mutter the words tobacco, bread, or wine, but never out of a desire to smoke or eat or drink any of these things.
Oh, really? Interesting. Oh.
In fact, when he did eat, he would do so with like intense fervor and enthusiasm. But at the same time, could go for like a week without eating anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very odd.
Yeah.
I mean, he was found like 5 years or more.
After he disappeared in
Yeah.
Bilbao. Yeah.
So you could have gotten used to not finding food for a long time.
Right.
And kind of got into that habit.
Yeah.
Very odd.
So he was said to be rather docile and obliging, accepting any task he was given and performing it immediately without any like emotion or any, anything.
Nice guy. He clearly understands Castilian still.
And so he carried on like this for like 9 years back in the village. Mm-hmm. And he was just kind of considered to be the town loon.
Sure. I mean, those days, people accepted a lot of crazy things.
Until one day,
Da-da-da-da.
he left to go for a swim in the sea and was...
I mean, you can't take the sea out of the sea monster.
Fact.
Hilarious.
Right?
Hilarious.
So that's the story, but I'll get into theories
Okay.
after the break.
Okay.
Shall we take a break?
Yeah, this is a on the edge break. I'm excited to hear theories. See you guys soon.
Okay.
And we're back. Hello, Julie.
Hello.
Hello, listeners.
All right. So, how did this legend live on? Because it is a legend.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I mean, it's a fantastic story already.
Yeah.
I mean, if part of this were true, it would be crazy.
Yeah. And it lives on as
And
being this crazy story.
There appears to be, some truth to it. Mm-hmm. For sure, because, Mom was there, people wrote about it.
Yep.
It's almost 1700s, so,
Yep.
writing is a thing.
Yes. Absolutely. So, speaking of that, in the early 1700s, around 1720,
Okay, so this is
During
about
the
20
Age of
years,
Enlightenment.
40 years after the happening.
around
Ish,
there, yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, well, yeah, he
A
lived...
scholar, writer, and Spanish monk by the name of Benito Geronimo Fejo
had come across this story of the fishman through several of his acquaintances, whom he considered to be very credible. I'm going to give you a little background on Fejo. So he joined the Benedictine order at the age of 14. He studied in Galicia, Leon, and Salamanca.
Okay.
Later becoming a professor of theology at the University of Salamanca, which is a very famous university.
Very famous, yeah.
He was dismayed by the superstition and ignorance of his time and set about to combat it through scientific study.
And very valid, especially for the time.
So, yeah, as a monk as well.
Yeah, well,
He garnered much admiration and fame throughout Europe, but came up against hardcore opposition, particularly in Spain. In one quote, it was said that, quote, he tried to uproot many popular errors, awakened an interest in scientific methods, and is justly regarded as the initiator of educational reform in Spain.
That's very nice.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
look into this guy.
All
Very
right.
nice.
Okay, so when Fejo first heard about this amphibian-like man, he was, of course, skeptical. As a man of science and a staunch pragmatist, he was extremely dubious about the existence of such a creature. As a writer, he was a vocal opponent of superstition, hoaxes, and charlatans. Charlatans, that's right. It's actually charlatans, you're right. So he set out to establish the story's veracity, okay?
And it's not that far from the facts, 10 years or 20 maybe?
40, right? It was 1674 when he was found.
Yeah, but then didn't he live another 10 years
another
in his village?
9 or so years, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's
so like
30.
into the 80s, yeah.
30 years away from the facts.
Yeah.
Still alive, people alive.
Yeah, exactly. So
that
that's
could
where
talk
this
about
comes
it.
in, right? So he did so by interviewing and documenting the accounts given by reputable witnesses who were around at the time of the events. He quoted several of his sources, including Marquis of Valbuena, an educated nobleman from Santander, Don Gasper Melchor de la Riba Aguirre, a knight from the Order of Santiago from Gajuano, which is a town... Gajano, excuse me. Which is a town near Liérganes. And Don
Dionisio Rubalcaba.
Thank you, Douglas. From Solares. So this last man, he allegedly
All like important people randomly.
They were all very important people, right?
Which at least...
So which makes them more credible.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Right?
Especially
so this
if
man, this last one, was allegedly knew and met Francisco de la Vega. Okay. So he interviewed these men and many others who were around at the time when Francisco reappeared in the village. He included a number of details, names, and dates in his writings. He went so far as to put forward scientific arguments to back the presence of fishmen in the sea.
So cute. I love that.
Ultimately, he concluded that the story of the fishman was in fact true.
Wow.
People also concurred with his findings, claiming that if this renowned skeptic believed in the existence of a half-human, half-fish creature, then it must be true. Therefore solidifying the credibility of the legend.
Yeah.
Okay?
Interesting.
In fact, stories about fishmen were very popular in Europe and in Spain around this time.
Really?
And many writers wrote about them. So the legend was solidified and taken as fact. Until 2 centuries later.
Oh, long time.
Yep, 2 centuries.
Yeah.
Dr. Gregorio Marañón disputed the findings of Fejo.
Sure.
By using actual scientific explanations.
230 years later.
Current.
Sure. For the time.
Right? Current, yeah.
But was this, what, is this 1920s?
So this is in 19 something. Early 1900s. Okay.
Just 100 years ago.
So I'll give you a little background on this guy, Dr. Greg. Okay, that's what I call him, Dr. Greg. He was a Spanish physician, scientist, historian, writer, and philosopher.
I like it when you could be 5 things.
I know, right? He's a man of many trades.
I mean, you only had a few books to read.
A real thinker, right? This guy,
yeah.
he's a real thinker. So, aside from his intense devotion to medicine, he also wrote about history, art, travel, cooking, clothing, hairstyle, and shoes.
Oh. I feel a gay theme there. I think
I know, right?
get along with the boy.
That's what I thought too. He's like a fashionista of his time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So amongst his works, I don't know if I should even mention this, but amongst his works
We got it.
was a series where he examined the great human passions through historical characters.
Interesting.
So he wrote these series of books that were just about like the psychological
Kind of profiling of people.
Yeah,
in a
through
way.
these historical characters.
Interesting.
How these are played out in real life or something. He studied the text written by Fejo and thought, oh no, I can explain this man's appearance.
Okay.
Okay?
Hold on to your chapellas.
Hold on to your chapella.
Because I don't
He's
think
gonna
this
explain.
explanation
No.
is...
I actually...
Oh, really? You like it? Oh, okay.
I think he did actually explain it.
Okay.
This is 1920 or so, right?
Sure.
Okay, so there's a lot of, evolution in medicine and etc.
Somewhat. I mean, psychology was pretty bad still.
Well, sure, but that's not... The man looked like a fish, according to everybody that saw him, right? So... But,
Let's see.
Okay. So while he did admit that Fejo's account did offer up many credible witnesses and testimonies, and they were most likely true, but it was primarily the accounts documenting his disappearance in Bilbao and his reappearance in Cadiz before being brought back to Cantabria, and then disappearing at sea all over again.
Yeah.
Okay, so all that he deemed to be true. This all happened, right?
Okay.
But Francisco's fish-like appearance could be explained by a common disease found most prevalently in mountainous regions.
Oh, interesting.
He referred to it by its antiquated term, cretinism.
Cretinism.
Like a cretin, right? Which is derogatory now.
It is. Interesting.
So today, this condition is no longer referred to as cretinism, but it's called congenital iodine deficiency syndrome.
Okay.
It's a condition that is present at birth in babies who've had insufficient dietary iodine during the pregnancy, creating an inadequate production of the thyroid hormone.
Interesting.
It's all been eradicated in developed countries.
True.
Through iodine supplementation in food and through blood tests to check the thyroid function in newborns. Okay? If it goes untreated, both physical and mental development will be impaired. The physical symptoms may include goiters. Do you know what a goiter is?
It's like when your neck swells up a lot.
Yeah, or you have balls of things on your
neck.
Like
okay.
a swelling of something on your neck, right?
Good to specify.
Yeah, it's a gradual enlargement of the thyroid gland. Okay, and that's called a goiter.
Oh, so that might have been what they were thinking were gills. Interesting.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So here's a little historical sketch of people with goiters. This is like an old school
I would say
medical sketch.
Real bad sketch of some people with...
Well, they had to draw it in the days, right?
Sure. I mean, you wonder if the guy is like a second-year art student or if he really had goiters. But sure, let's go with it. Let's suppose they actually look like that.
Other symptoms and physical traits include stunted growth in infants, resulting in a shorter stature in adulthood. So, the adult stature without treatment ranges from 100 to 160 centimeters, which in feet and inches is 3 feet 3 inches to 5 foot 3 inches.
Yeah, tiny. I mean,
I'm shorter than the top range.
Oh, sorry, Jules.
I'm fucking 5'2".
Your mom never gave you salt with iodine.
I know. I feel robbed. I feel fucking robbed.
Hilarious.
I know. I was like, oh dear, I fit into this category.
I think you'd be.
But I have no goiters, right?
No.
Could you tell the listeners I do not have goiters?
0. But she has a very muscular neck.
I have a very muscular neck.
You're some sporty
it's
girl.
Huge. I have like a footballer's neck, right?
You're a sporty girl. It's more like what you call it, the whole
My shoulders are huge.
shoulder, upper body. Yeah.
My dad has big shoulders, so I think that's where I got it.
Nice. Nice one.
I'm tiny, but I have huge shoulders. I am a real freak of nature.
We all
If
are.
they found me in the sea, they'd be like, "Get this girl to the convent."
This girl's
Who
a
is
fish
this
woman.
Beastly. Aside from being really fucking short, like myself.
Right.
Okay, they had thickened skin, hair loss, enlarged tongue, protruding abdomen, delayed bone maturation, delayed puberty in children, mental deterioration, neurological impairment, impeded ovulation, and infertility in adults.
Oh, good to know we're not going to have fish babies.
So this is all traits of this cretinism, otherwise known as, what did I say?
Iodine deficiency.
What did I call it? Congenital iodine deficiency syndrome.
Congenital.
Okay.
Wow.
So, as for the symptoms that signal their mental deterioration and neurological impairment, sufferers may be lacking in muscle tone and coordination to the point that they cannot stand or walk. Their cognitive impairment may range from mild to severe. And in most severe cases, the person presents as nonverbal, with slower thought processes and reflexes. And often those afflicted are most severely... often those afflicted most severely are wholly dependent on others for their care.
Interesting.
So,
It ticks many boxes.
yep.
Like the
So
swollen
Dr.
tongue
Greg
would stop you from speaking.
Maragnon. He surmised that the fishman's physical appearance and mental disorder could be explained by the ravages of this disease. So the lumps on his body, goiters, right? The thinning hair, the appearance of his fingernails, because remember I said they were corroded. His lack of verbal ability, mostly mute except for 4 words, right? The name of his hometown, tobacco,
Wine and bread.
bread, and wine. That was it.
All the basics.
That's all he could ever say.
Yeah.
And the fact that most reports say that he was kind of dim-witted and docile. In addition, the fact that he was from a mountainous region further supported this theory.
So a big thing about the mountains there is because today sea salt has iodine. If you're not eating anything from the sea, it's possible that you never get iodine. So that's why it would be connected to mountains.
Yeah. This was an affliction that many were known to suffer from the Santander area at the time.
Okay.
Okay. So where he came from, this was a problem.
Kind
they
of
were having.
endemic. Okay.
Yep.
No bacalao there.
If you'll indulge me for a moment, I will give you a historical background linking mountainous regions with this lack of iodine in the soil.
For sure.
Okay? And this is all from Wikipedia. It's kind of long.
A paragraph. A nice paragraph. Let's go for it.
Okay. And this is all quotes. It's all directly from Wikipedia. I didn't write any of this, okay?
Yes, I trust it enough. So.
Okay. Soil deficient in iodine is most common inland, in mountainous regions, and in areas of frequent flooding. Plants and animals grown in iodine-deficient soils are correspondingly deficient. Populations living in those areas without outside food sources are most at risk of iodine deficiency diseases.
How interesting.
Congenital iodine deficiency syndrome was especially common in areas of southern Europe around the Alps and was often described by ancient Roman writers and depicted by artists.
Fascinating.
The earliest alpine mountain climbers sometimes came upon whole villages affected by it.
Oh my gosh.
At that time, the cause was not known, and it was often attributed to stagnant air, quote unquote, and in mountain valleys or bad water, quote unquote. The proportion of people affected varied markedly throughout southern Europe and even within very small areas. It might be common in one valley and not another.
Well, they could have iodine in the other valleys.
Yep.
Somehow.
Yep. The number of severely affected persons was always a minority, and most persons were only affected to the extent of having a goiter and some degree of reduced cognition and growth. The majority of such cases were socially functional in their pastoral villages. More mildly affected areas of Europe and North America in the 19th century were referred to as goiter belts.
Oh my gosh.
So, goiter belts. That's just so funny to me. Anyway. The degree
it's odd enough. It's weird as hell.
I know. So, yeah, like, people are going there and like, oh, my God, all these people have goiters.
I'm very happy we got rid of goiter belts, because now
True.
there's iodine
Absolutely.
salt. There is no more goiter belts.
Well, and I'll explain why. So, the degree of iodine deficiency was milder and manifested primarily as thyroid enlargement rather than severe mental or physical impairment.
Mm-hmm.
In Switzerland, for example, where soil does not contain a large amount of iodine, cases of congenital iodine deficiency syndrome were very abundant and even considered genetically caused. So at first they thought it was just something that was passed
inherited
down,
somehow.
Right?
Well,
so as the variety of food sources dramatically increased in Europe and in North America, and the populations became less completely dependent on locally grown food, the prevalence of endemic goiter diminished.
how interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So this is supported by a 1979 WHO, World Health Organization, publication, which concluded that changes in the origin of food supplies may account for the otherwise unexplained disappearance of endemic goiter from a number of localities during the last 50 years.
Wow. So they didn't even make an effort.
So it was like just about getting food from other places.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Isn't it?
Yeah, so apparently, like, if your apples come from a valley with iodine, they've got enough iodine, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
Right?
I always thought it was associated with salt for some reason, but it's really interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't until, like, everybody started eating food from other places that these things disappeared.
So warning for your self-sufficient
Don't
mad
be
people.
so, yeah.
Like, don't eat everything from the same valley. Just exchange some fruit with the next valley.
Yeah, have a trading agreement.
At least you need to exchange apples.
Yeah.
Have an apple exchanging season.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very
Right?
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned something in this story.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, so a goiter or goiters that might have been on Francisco's neck might explain, as you said, Douglas, earlier, the gill-like features described by those who encountered him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, this was something really weird.
I mean,
So the fact that he resurfaced in Cadiz, where this condition is not common,
yeah.
they would look at this person and be like, what the hell is this guy's huge neck all about?
Very good point. Very good point. They might have found it normal in his village.
Right.
If another
Because
people
apparently
had
there's
it.
an
Yeah.
endemic right at that time in Santander, or the area around Santander. So, they thought, oh my God, this guy's got a fish neck or something. I don't know.
1700s. What are you going to say?
1600s,
sorry.
Late 1600s.
Sorry.
Additionally, Dr. Marañón, or Dr. Greg, as I like to call him, concluded that perhaps Francisco suffered from a skin disease that would explain the scaly appearance of his skin. This could have been due to a genetic disorder called ichthyosis.
Ichthyosis, yeah, looks like it.
The name comes from the Greek word ichthys, which literally means fish.
Yeah. I knew that.
And its most defining feature is thick, excessively dry, and scaly skin. So, here you go. If you want to explain.
It's very illustrative. Yeah, it's as if
this
somebody...
type of skin disorder.
Yeah.
It looks like giraffe.
A giraffe scale sort of pattern.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit less detailed than a giraffe, but it's as if you had some tights. And
Like thick. It looks very thick.
It's as if your skin was earth and it had dried after it was mud, and then you could see your skin between the cracks.
That's a good description.
Sort of your normal color skin, sort of. And it just looks like a dried up skin. And it could be interpreted as scales, for sure.
So, Dr. Gregorio Marañón, he came to the conclusion that if his theory was accurate, and that Francisco de la Vega Casar had an acute case of cretinism, and then the mere idea of him swimming from Bilbao to Cadiz would have been implausible. So so in his own, when he was coming to this theory, he was like, no way did this guy, if this was his problem, he didn't swim from Bilbao to Cadiz.
I mean, he's got
because
4
of
years.
the syndrome that he had.
But sure, yeah.
But because of the syndrome that he had, that would have been impossible for him. So he had to come up with some theories of his own. to explain how Francisco ended up in Cadiz. So he supposes, so now all of this is theory from here on out, right?
Yeah, it's
He supposes that Francisco did make it to shore, but just ended up wandering from place to place until he found himself in Cadiz by following the coastline.
okay.
And the fact that he was found off the coast while out in water was just a coincidence. Or was it? According to this Dr. Gregg, he probably sustained himself by eating anything he could find along the seashore, such as marine algae and shellfish. Two types of sustenance that are very rich sources of iodine.
Yeah.
If someone suffers from congenital iodine deficiency syndrome, their symptoms can be alleviated by eating iodine-rich foods.
Yeah.
Also, sea air is naturally iodized, which
Oh,
you
is
said.
it? Interesting. I didn't know the sea air was. I just all the food connected to the sea was iodized or what I thought.
So it was creating a far more comfortable environment for someone afflicted with the syndrome.
How interesting.
Yeah. So Dr. Marañón also speculated as to why this young man just disappeared into the river and that not much was made of it at the time, neither back home or by those who worked with him in Bilbao. They didn't do like any sort of investigating. I mean, his mother was not up in arms, like, what happened to my son?
I mean, she heard about it a week later.
She
so
heard about it and like, nah, well,
What you
okay,
gonna
my
do?
son died, right?
What you gonna do?
Yeah. So he supposes, now this is where it gets a little dark. He supposes that Francisco was sent away to Bilbao after his father's death because he'd become an economic burden on the family and a source of shame due to his disorder. So he may have had like the goiters.
Sure.
He may have had the
Skin
disability already, right? The skin
Sure.
condition and, you know, mental and physical disabilities associated with it, right?
I will jump ahead, perhaps, and interject that I don't think the guy would accept him as a student if of carpentry if he
Wow.
saw this guy turn up.
Okay, wait for it.
Okay.
Okay. So then he further postulated that once living and working in Bilbao, he then became the problem of his workmates
Yeah.
and whoever his, like, what do you call somebody that has an apprentice? The master or whatever.
I guess that it was the master. Huh?
Yeah. So became the problem of them, right? Describing him as probably a possible unproductive servant, right? So he deduced that either Francisco actually did go for a swim in the estuary and was swept out to sea, but survived and wandered until he ended up in Cadiz. And his work buddies were relieved to see him float away.
Sure.
Or that perhaps they offered somebody money to take him off their hands and use him as a servant, where he was ordered to fetch tobacco, bread, and wine, the only words that he was able to mutter aside from his hometown, right?
Interesting.
So maybe he escaped from his servitude or whatever,
Yeah.
and was abandoned, or he was abandoned.
Yeah.
And then he was left to fend for himself by
Right.
feeding on whatever he could find along the coast.
True.
So whatever the case may be, Francisco was found after 5 years, and his appearance had aroused so much curiosity that the church went to great lengths to return him to his family, and that they were then burdened by him again. Dr. Gregg said he went so far as to say that his final disappearing act, by going out to sea and then never coming back, was not an accident or by his own
Volition.
making, and was part of another like sinister plot.
Way to get rid of him. Ooh.
So obviously this is not proven
No.
by any stretch, but that's it. So it made for a hell of a good legend, right?
It definitely does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
A weird, twisty end there.
I know. Like if they ended up murdering him in the end.
It seems like an.
But he lived there for 9 years. They let
Yeah.
him stay for 9 years.
seems like they
it doesn't
wouldn't-
seem like they would
wouldn't
just
got ri-
like,
they could've
let's plot this murder for 9 years.
Yeah, they would have gotten used to him by then. It's like it's the naked guy. It's
Well,
fine.
they were probably used to him
What else are you gonna
before
do?
they sent him off to Bilbao as well.
Exactly.
If he was problematic. But he probably deteriorated with time, right? With this syndrome.
I mean, it was always obviously better after living 5 years along the coast, supposedly. I mean, if he was.
Yeah, that was another thing, is that they thought that he was probably really bugged that he got sent back to Cantabria where he wasn't able to like have iodine rich,
Yeah. It would deteriorate again.
and and
Probably.
it really made him just like deteriorate his condition.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
Yeah. So today, if you visit
Come on,
Liérganes.
it's super close.
Cantabria, if you go there, you'll find a monument. So it will find the monument to the Fishman. It's a statue that sits on the bank of the Miera River, just below the Roman bridge. It
So
just looks like a little guy
bronze
sitting next to it,
statue.
like
It's a nice
contemplating. I don't know.
nice position.
Yeah, it looks like he's just like a guy sitting by the river.
Yep. He's got one.
And in fact, in that town, it looked as though, like in the tourist sites that I was visiting for this town, it looked as though they were saying he disappeared from that river, not Bilbao's river.
Oh, interesting. So like they skipped the part where he went
To Bilbao
apprentice.
and disappeared. Well, thank you, Douglas, for joining.
You in the story.
Me.
It's been a beautiful story. Thank you
Thanks
for
for letting me
researching
tell
it. Tell me, it was fascinating. I learned a lot about weird things.
I know. It was fun. It was really fun.
I loved it. I
This
loved
story.
it. And even if this is coming to you in autumn
In September,
or winter,
because it's probably going to come to you in September. or
indeed,
somewhere around there.
let us transmit the warmness of the months
Of the
we're
beginning of
recording
summer
in.
that we're... All right, Douglas, I love you. And
warm thoughts to all our listeners.
Yes.
And I love you too, Jules.
Thank you. Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
And what do we say to, what's our...
We bid you
Agur.
Crimes of the Basque Lands is written and produced by
Douglas D. Carvalho.
Julie Garcia.
I'm Megan Dooley.
The sound and editing for each episode by
Douglas D. Carvalho.
I'm Megan Dooley.
Theme song written by
Douglas D. Carvalho.
Julie Garcia.
I'm Megan Dooley.
Sung by the choir with no name and produced by Tom Squires. Podcast art by Distinct Signal. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Crimes of the Basque Lands and contact us at crimesofthebasquelands@gmail.com with story ideas worldwide which have a connection to the Basque Country or any rave reviews. If you like our podcast, please subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time,
Agur.